In previous lectures, we explained topics related to the descriptive statistic, as you remember, and also the types of variables. And now want to go a step further and talk about the analytical statistics. But first, let's take a look at the briefly look at the basic study designs. Well, studies can generally be classified as the observational and experimental, and the time referred to data gathering is an important factor for categorizing the studies. For example, it's in the present, we are going to data from the past, or we are going to gather data in the future. We can categorize our studies. Well, observational studies fall into three classes as cohort, case control, and the cross-sectional studies. And experimental studies are clinical trials which the researcher make an intervention and do changes intentionally. Cross-sectional studies is referred about a single point in the time that we are gathering data about the present health as characteristic. For example, how many students are smoking in the university. So we get a sample, and based on the sample, we can just find out a number of the people who have the condition. And if you also remember, we can calculate the prevalence through the cross-sectional studies. And because we are just describing a characteristic in the population, we can also call it a descriptive statistic. Beside the presentation of the health characteristic, we can use also cross-sectional studies for generating a hypothesis for the future researchers to find and reach to a conclusion. But with cross-sectional, there is no causality. We cannot talk about the cause and effect. The other type of study is the case control, in which patients, in the case control studies, the patients who have a disease of interest, a researcher interested in a disease, they are asked about their prior exposure to hypothesized factor. And we call these patients as the cases. That they are matched with individuals without a disease, without this type of disease, but usually with similar demographic characteristics, and we call them control. This demographic characteristics simply can be age, for example, the gender, and based on the disease, if we have a specific type of exposure, like the job, and so we can add them to the list of matching for the case and control. And since we are looking to the data, what happened in the past, then we call this type of a study as retrospective. Since we can draw a conclusion from this type of studies also, they are not descriptive. So we continue with the other type of studies, which is the cohort studies. And the cohort studies are prospective. First thing we can say about this one. And it means that we are looking to data in the future. It means we start with the individuals who are free from a disease or a condition, and they follow them during the time, and in the end we might find out that some of them develop the condition and some of them not, and we follow them by different waves to find out different type of risk factors. And these risk factors also that we are looking for in the future, we can also find the incidence or the number of new cases that happening during a period of time. So this is incidence rate. You remember, rate is when we have the data in the period of the time. Clinical trials also start with the individuals, but here individuals have a condition, not like the cohort. And this condition that they have, this is actually our dependent variable, and the researcher manipulates or intervene with a independent variable and observe the influence that changes that happening there based on the problems that they have. And then these are the changes that happening. So the intervention is a change on the independent variable, and the disease can be the dependent variable. Uh, well, in next lectures, we are going to talk about the analytical statistic. As you see, we have descriptive here, but we have analytic more in this type of case control cohort and the clinical trials. And then the approach that we are going to have for the analytical statistic based on two major categories as estimation, we are going to explain, and also hypothesis testing, which refer to the p-value, and we have different ways to find the p-value for different hypotheses. And in the end, we are going to talk about one general strategy, which called the modeling, and we use it mostly for the prediction.